Seniors are increasingly falling victim to cybercrime, so how can we fight this trend? I'm Mike Loader. Ending Cyber Risk starts now. Welcome back to Ending Cyber Risk, presented by the team at Arctic Wolf, where each episode we unpack the ways we can put an end to risky cyber behaviour. And today, losing billions each year, scammers are exploiting seniors' lack of digital knowledge with deceptive tactics. But with the right precautions, you can protect yourself and stay safe in the digital world. Joining me to discuss this further is Christopher Fielder, Field CTO and Editor-in-Chief at Arctic Wolf. Good to see you, my friend. Why are seniors so much more likely to be targeted by scammers and hackers?
Yeah, it's a great question. And unfortunately, it comes down to just like all, criminal activity. It comes to risk versus reward. And in this case, the risk comes from these individuals that are being targeted. They are not what we would call cyber native, right? So if we think about somebody like my daughter and my son who are 18 and 17, they were born into a world where they don't know of a world without cell phones and cryptocurrency and social media and the internet. And those that are 60 and above, they may just now be starting to get into some of these technologies. And anytime there's a learning curve like that, there's the risk of being taken advantage of, especially when there's money involved, right? And that's when we get to the reward aspect. In this case, we don't want to denigrate anybody that's a senior and say, that they're not intelligent or anything like that. They absolutely are.
Yeah.
The issue is that they're just, sometimes behind on the technology. In the US alone, for instance, right? In 2023, there were some FBI crime statistics that actually said over 101,000 Americans that were 60 and over were actually the victims of digital fraud. That is a massive number. So if you were the victim, you're not alone here. There are many people were taken advantage of. I believe the average that they were, taken for was over 30,000 US dollars. I believe it's right around 33,000 US dollars each. That is a huge amount of money that they fell victim to. The total amount just in that year alone, 2023, last year, it totaled over 3.4 billion US dollars. So you see here, like there is a lot of money to be made here. So of course there's going to be this problem with people trying to make that money, people trying to steal that.
If I can jump in, I'm curious to know what some of the most common scams directed at these older demographics are, or signs of said scams. Take us through a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so it comes down to pretty much just confidence games, right? So traditional manipulation and traditional tactics that cyber criminals would do, they've just gone digitized now. What they'll generally do is, and unfortunately, it appeals to what you would say is kind of the worst nature of human beings, right? And that's going to be our fear, our uncertainty, and our greed. And so what they're going to try and do is say, hey, we're going to take something away from you. You haven't paid your taxes. We're going to take your savings account. Or, hey, you won something. And in order to get that, we need something from you. Again, it's just the traditional methods that a lot of criminals would do. They've just gone into kind of a new method of doing it. And they're trying to play off of that fear or establish some sort of certainty. A good example is, right, they'll try to establish that authority. They'll call up and they'll say something, and they'll speak very quickly as well. They'll say something like, hey, it's your local grocery store calling. And I don't know if you remember this, but you actually entered that contest and you won 2 tickets to the Bahamas. I hope you're really excited to go. Here's the problem. The trip is next week. So if you don't have your passport, you're not ready to go, don't worry about it. We can go ahead and give you the value of that. All that we need is just access to your bank account to get that deposit done.
Easy as that.
And you're too busy. Exactly. And you're too busy thinking, hey, I won, I'm going to get this money. And then later on you think, oh no, I probably shouldn't have given them access to my bank account. But by then it's too late, right?
Absolutely. And of course you see signs of SMS messages, emails, etc. Those traditional services that say, hey, you've got a delivery, you've got a package, respond to it. I may or may not have had to undo something from a certain senior in my life. But what are some things that senior citizens can do to proactively boost their cyber resilience and not rely on their children as much?
And I think this is one of the most important things that we could talk about right now, right, is how to prevent this. And that's to remind everybody right now that you are in control. And that's one of the most important things that we could say. Anytime somebody's going to be talking to you and they want something from you, remember, they want something from you. So you absolutely have the right to say, stop. pause, wait a moment, and ask more questions. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't right, right? If it feels too good to be true, unfortunately, I would love to say that you won that money. It's probably not true. So ask more questions. If it's a phone call, you absolutely can say, hey, I'm busy right now. Let me call you back. Give me a number that I can reach you at. And then take the time to research that number. Ask friends, ask relatives, do the research yourself, put it into Google and see what you can find out about that number. If it's an email, don't just immediately reply to it. See where it came from, and then do your research on, well, okay, what is this company? What is this name? If you can't find anything, it's probably not valid. Always be willing to ask questions. There's no cost in asking questions. And guess what? You're not going to frustrate any individual that is trying to give you something that's legitimate. You're going to frustrate individuals that are trying to scam you. And if you do hear them getting frustrated or they're trying to rush you, that's a good sign that this is something that's not legitimate. Yeah. So, and then on top of that, there's kind of standard what we call cyber hygiene, where I would say change your passwords on regular basis, use different passwords, look into something called multi-factor authentication. Don't click on links in emails. Again, it's all about establishing that control, maintaining that control, because you are in charge, and don't give away anything that you don't feel comfortable giving away.
Yeah, absolutely. Christopher, great rundown from you. I'll also add to that, if the sale seems too good to be true, if you know that a brand doesn't put things down normally, for instance, activewear, a certain activewear brand, they don't give away that much. Anyway, I'm talking from experience, but Christopher, thank you so much for joining me on the program today and giving us some practical tips.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me.
That's the program for the moment. More Ticker coming up right now.
You're watching Ticker. We'll have more in just a few minutes.